Hello dear friends, the tournament in Nice has ended, and now after all the excitement has passed, we're gonna take a look at one of the games from the tournament. Today we'll take a look at an endgame from the game Carlsen-Topalov, which was very interesting for the readers of Cressbook.com. Carlsen seemed to have won it easily, but the analysis showed that this endgame is very difficult and full of ideas. We'll divide the analysis into a few parts. Part 1. White's main threat, the breakthrough on the queen side. Part 2. The defense of the main threat. With a couple of pawns on the king side, a draw is possible. Part 3. Does black have time to trade a couple of pawns on the king side and prevent the breakthrough on the queen side? Part 4. How to win if black prevented the breakthrough on the queen side. Again, a win is possible with two pairs of pawns on the king side. Part 5. The conclusion. Chess is a tragedy of one tempo. What was left behind the scenes. And don't forget about the counterattack. So, let's begin. Part 1. In front of you, you see the diagram from the game. Move 61, black to move. After the first few moves that we'll pass through without commentary, white demonstrates his most important advantage. King b5. The white king breakthrough. Bishop e1. Here instead, king c7 lost even faster. King a6, bishop e1, b5, king b8, a5. Later, white puts a pawn on b6, the king on b5, and pushes the a pawn. With the move bishop e1, black ties himself to the pawn. That's a standard tactic in this sort of an endgame. It's an attempt to tie the king to the defense of the pawn. But here, this tactic doesn't save black. King b6. The easiest way. White controls the path of the a pawn. Bishop takes b4, a5, bishop c5 check, king b7, king e7, bishop h5, and black resigned. The pawn on g4 survives, and that means that the white king, after capturing the bishops, since the bishop will have to capture the a pawn, will go to the king's side and open up the way for his soldier. Part 2. To understand how black can hold on to the position on the queen side, let's look at the diagram that is now on your screen. Here, the black king is controlling the square b6, and the bishop gets tied to the pawn b4. White can improve his position on the queen side. To a6, black will play bishop e3, turning the diagonal a7 g1 into an impossible wall to get over. If instead white pushes the b pawn with king a4, bishop e1, b5, then black puts the king on c5, not letting white to activate his king. Now white has nothing better than the white king's trip to the king's side doesn't bring any success, since after moving the king to b8, black frees up the bishop for the responsibilities on the queen's side, and easily defends the pawn g5. Does that mean that the position could be a draw? Part 3. In the previous part of our analysis, we saw that black has chances for a draw after trading a couple of pawns. Let's return to the starting position of the endgame. Black to move. He has an opportunity to play h5 right away, forcing a trade of a couple of pawns. Let's see if that will be enough for a draw. h5, bishop d3, freeing up the square b5 for the king with a tempo. The white king is moving forward, and again with a tempo. By the way, here, bishop b2 doesn't save either. To get to the drawing position from part 2 of the analysis, black has to make two moves simultaneously, king c7 and bishop e1. As a result, black can't control the breakthrough. The position is won by white with the same methods as we saw in part 1 of our analysis. Part 4. Black is missing a tempo to make everything happen. It's logical to suggest that black can hold off white on the queen's side if he doesn't waste time on the trades on the king's side. Of course, with the two couple of pawns on the king's side, white's problem simplifies, since it will be much harder for the black bishop to control two pawns. But still, it's necessary to check that there is a win. So let's return to the game. Move 64, black to move. Here black played h6 and quickly lost. Let's try to regroup to hold off the breakthrough on the queen's side. Instead, king c7. Let's look at the next possible scenario, which leads to an example of defense from part 2 of our analysis. And so, on the queen's side, black blocks the passed pawns. There's still the question, how do you win? It's no use turning on the chess programs, they won't help. In such situations, it's important to think positionally. The only chance for white is in the breakthrough on the king's side. Most importantly, can the king march to the king's side and destroy the pawn h6? Yes, but we won't go over the details of the breakthrough. We just ask you to please believe us that black can't stop the march of the white king. For simplicity, we will go over this variation. What to do next? The black bishop doesn't let white develop a passed pawn on the king's side. On the queen's side, black has the situation under control, and still there's a solution. First of all, let's push the white king closer to c8. Now look closely. Black can't move the king because king c8 will follow, and white has to correctly use the distraction with the a pawn. Defending the pawn b7, the necessary preparation of the sacrifice of the a pawn. Here a7 is possible right away, but it's stronger to first make the opponent make a move. Bishop a3, or also bishop g3, and this variation. Everything is over for black since his bishop is tied to the defense of the square b8. But if b3, the black bishop is now controlling both g5 and a7, but white has waiting moves, and soon the black bishop will have to make a choice. An attempt to not let the pawn g go further leads to variations with the sacrifice of the a pawn, which are analogous with what we just looked at, and so white wins. Part 5. Chess is a tragedy of one tempo. Black didn't have that tempo to fix all of his problems. We looked at the main ideas and variations of this most interesting endgame, but that's not all. That's why, as a conclusion, we offer you the award-winning variation which didn't show up in the main analysis. Look at the diagram that is now on your screen, and now try to make the right move yourself. I'm sure that you'll get immense pleasure from the beauty of it. Look at that, what a beauty. And now, black has to resign.